Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
Now, as we start at the top of the episode, I think Joy has got some questions for me.
All right. So I come up with a new little skit. Me and Tim have been doing music news for a little bit. Tim's going to have, I think, another piece for you guys in a few minutes. And this skit is just asking Tim questions that I want to hear how he answers them. And some of it may be for my own personal amusement, but you guys are here for the journey. All right. So this is the first question. If you have described something as indescribable, haven't you already described it then?
Yeah, yes, you've described it as indescribable, but the word indescribable doesn't have a description.
But have you ever, it kind of does though, if you think about it. If someone told you, I was watching a sunset and it was so beautiful, it's indescribable, you still have a general understanding of what a sunset is. And if it's indescribable, you could probably visualize it in your head. They're just not verbalizing it.
Yeah, but if I said to you, I bought a new Telecaster guitar, and let me tell you, the tone of that bridge pickup was undescribable.
I would assume that kind of means like rich sounds and vibrant. I don't know. I feel like it does kind of have a definition in my brain. Is the definition of indescribable indescribable? Or is that too far?
Yeah, I don't know. You're right. It doesn't allude to something when you say it's indescribable. And I suppose in essence, that is a description, but the word itself doesn't have a description. Yeah, it's what's implied. I suppose that's what it is.
That still doesn't really answer. I guess it does because you are giving a description. So you buy it, then that means what they're saying is correct. Because if you're saying it's indescribable, then that would, if you're saying something is indescribable, you are describing it.
That's correct, yes.
It took me way too long to get to the end of that. I kept having to go back in my brain to figure out what I was going for. All right. So there's the first question. The next one is going to be a very specific question to Tim that no one's going to know if it's correct, but we're going to ask it anyway. In the room you're in, Tim, how many pennies do you think would fit in that room and why?
It would be millions of pennies. I would say millions and millions of pennies. Because, I mean, you can have $1 worth of pennies and it takes up no space at all. It's like you can fit 100 pennies in your hand. Now, The room that I'm in is not a big room. We don't have a big house, but this is an average sized room. I mean, I don't know how big it is. I've never really measured it. But if you think of your average bedroom in your average little house, that's probably what it is. But if you think like these swimming pools that you see, and they say they have 4 million gallons of water or something silly like that in it, and then you think how small those pennies are and how big this room is really in compared to a penny, it would be millions and millions of pennies that would fit in this room.
There we go. There's the final answer. I really don't know how many pennies would fit in my room, but it would be millions and millions. So I agree with Tim.
I have a follow-up question for you. How many Funko Pops do you think would fit in that room?
Well, if we took them all from all the other rooms and put them in here, it still would only be about half the room if I'm looking at it visually. So that's about 2,000 or so Funkos, so at least 4,000 Funkos. Okay,
well, that's good. I'm glad we've covered that.
I've seen enough Funkos, and it depends on if we're talking about the giant size Funkos. I have questions, but I would say at least 4,000 Funkos.
Okay, well, that's good. I'm glad we've cleared that one up.
Didn't really take into account going up and down, but we're just going to pretend like I did. All right, anyway. So everybody's like, what does that even mean? It doesn't matter. One more question for Tim before we get to his little thing he wants to do. I want to let him announce it. That's why I keep saying weird names for it, because he enjoys the intro to this segment. But what are 2 things that you think are normal but become really strange when you do them repetitively?
I suppose eating breakfast. So you eat breakfast in the morning, and that's pretty normal. But if I ate the same breakfast at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock and midday and 2 p.m. and 3 p.m. and then 5 p.m. And then I get home from work and I think, what am I going to have? I've got some breakfast food. And then it gets to 10 o'clock and I have some breakfast. And then it becomes really weird.
It does. And it breaches on either binge eating or someone who's a little bit, that's like, everybody's got like there's like psychopath like traits or serial killer traits. That would appear as one for sure.
Absolutely.
Is there any other things you can think of, Tim, that are really strange if you did them repetitively? Well, that's English.
Some would say watching an 80s TV show every Saturday for the last 20 years in rotation, where you get to the end of the 4th season and then you go back to the 1st season again, and then you watch it over and again, and it takes you 2 years to complete the whole thing from beginning to end, and do that repeatedly year after year after year. Some would say that's a little odd, but I would not agree.
I would not agree. But to Tim's personal admittance of one of his traits that if you guys haven't picked up on, that might have been about him. I was just telling Tim about this stupid game me and my twin sister do, and some would find this weird. Tim's face just glossed over. He was like, yeah, that's weird. So since we're twins, we tend to have a lot of the same mannerisms and, I don't know, nature, nurture, whatever. Take it how you want it, how, that happens. But it's funny because we played games together, like we put Animal Crossing together, where you like dress your character up. And a lot of times there'll be different themes that you dress your character up, like it's right around spring and Easter. And so you pick something that's on that theme. Well, me and Brady have done this thing where we both go completely separate from each other, change our characters, and we'll end up wearing the exact same outfit. Or it'll be the same outfit, just different color patterns. So like mine would be red, it brings me blue, but it's the same. So I was telling him we do that across different games. And Tim's like, okay, bye. And so we find games where we can see if that happens. So there you are.
I think what that boils down to is it's not because I find any of that behavior odd. It's just I don't like video games. And it's just the concept of playing a video game I find weird because I don't like them.
Fair enough. At least you explain that.
But no, if you and your sister are having fun with it, I mean, that's fine. But video games in general ceased being interesting to me when I stopped being 12 years old.
And Tim is the kind of person that when you say something like that, his face just goes glossed over. He's like, nope, I'm out.
Well, that's the thing, because people say, you're an IT person. Don't you love video games? I'm like, no.
I feel like though you really have this strong background in like the audio visio. Why can't I say words today? Visual world and kind of an IT background though. So I see how you kind of got into it, at least hardware wise. Maybe not software, but hardware, definitely.
Yeah, I went through a number of jobs. I've worked a lot of customer service jobs. I've worked in retail. I've done all kinds of things. And it's sort of a career path I fell into. And I've been very, very lucky with it. And I've picked up a lot of skills along the way. But certainly that was not my goal when I left school. When I was in primary school, I wanted to work at McDonald's because it gave you free food.
I mean, at least you knew what you wanted.
Yeah, my careers teacher at secondary school told me that I should be a photocopier repairman.
You kind of are.
Exactly. And what do I do on occasion? I occasionally repair photocopiers. So, I mean, it's, there we are.
Whoever that career advocate or person or whatever you called her was in school, she needs a raise if she's still working.
Well, the gentleman's name is Jeff Taylor. He was my physics teacher and also did some of that career advice. And he also was a very early mentor with music because he had a band called Driven to Drink, and they put on a concert at lunchtime at Lambton School in Hounslow. And that was one of my early inspirations for playing in a band.
Okay. It just dawned on me. You've talked about that a little bit before, but it's a band called Driven to Drink, and they let it play in your elementary school's lunches. The UK is very different. That would never go through.
It was secondary school, so it's from the age of 13 to potentially 18. And he did a one-off concert at lunchtime in the school hall. And the band was called Driven to Drink.
It's just weird to me that like Driven to Drink was allowed to play at a school because the name Driven to Drink.
Yeah, but in England, there's not as uptight about that stuff.
That's what I'm saying. It's very different. Like no way. Somebody would sue if that happened in America.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, it's just called Driven to Drink. Oh, okay, that's fine then.
Especially if it were a teacher. Oh my God, we can't let the kids think teachers have lives, Tim. They're robots that shut off at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Anyway. All right.
So I have a CD of the week. I'm bringing back CD of the week. Now, this was something that I discovered on the Spotify. And just as a Spotify update, I don't have that horrific TikTok interface on my Spotify yet. And hopefully I will never get it. But anyhow, touch wood.
Joy has not.
Good. All right, so I was listening to some stuff on Spotify, and one thing I've been doing is I've been trying to listen to all the Foo Fighters albums because it's music. When I hear it, I like it, but I've never really listened to it much outside of the hits. So I've been working through the discography. Now I have Spotify, and their most recent studio album is called Medicine at Midnight.
I was looking at what the picture is.
And it came out in 2020. And as I said, I only really listened to the hits of the Foo Fighters, but I brought this up on Spotify as like the next one to listen to, and I really liked it. And in so much as I listened to the whole thing again the next day. And then when I had a little bit of extra cash in my pocket, I went and bought the CD of Medicine at Midnight because I liked it so much.
Well, 2020 is what you said. That's pretty, that's pretty recent, especially for us, Tim. I haven't heard much of their music. Is there a single that I might know on it from this kind of time frame from 2020?
Yeah, I mean, as we've said before, are singles even really a thing? But
true.
The title track, Medicine at Midnight, is very good. The opening track, Making a Fire, is absolutely fantastic. It's got almost gospel backing vocals in it. And the interesting thing, there are several songs on this album that contain guitar solos.
Whoa.
Actual, real guitar solos. And I was listening to it and I thought, on a Foo Fighters album? What's going on here?
They're one of those bands that on the surface level, I've always kind of, I don't want to say brushed them off, but found them average. But then when you start digging in their catalog and some of the stuff, like their cult followers and stuff, you see them play different instruments live, you realize they're very talented.
Absolutely. And of course, this is the last album that would have featured Taylor Hawkins, who sadly we lost a year or so ago. But I said, this is really good. I was surprised. As I worked through the discography, there are some albums that are like meh, and there's some that have really great standout tracks. But this one is like a no skip. I think every track on here is really good. I would recommend that you seek out Medicine at Midnight. Now, I am maybe 3 years late on this, and probably everyone came to that conclusion 3 years ago when it came out. But you know me.
That's what I said. For you, that's incredibly modern.
Exactly. So I highly recommend you get your Spotify machine and you crank that up and you put a pound coin in it, and then you listen to Foo Fighters' Medicine at Midnight.
When you do that, does it print out an 8-track for you to then put into your machine?
No, it actually spits out hit clips for every song.
Oh, gosh. Well, I was just telling Tim when we were recording, because we're double recording right now for reasons so we could take some time off. And Tim and me were discussing physical media, and I was explaining to him that the hit clips, the quality, the sound that came out of those was so bad and cut out so much that you couldn't even set it down and listen to it. You had to have it right by your ear.
Yeah, I think it was a 64 kilobit MP3 or something similar to that. It was so incredibly poor. On one of Techmoan's videos, who I mentioned in the last episode, I think he said it is the worst quality audio format ever released, even compared to a wax cylinder or something.
You do better just to have you throw like a like the string where you got 2 cans on the end. You throw that inside of the record video studio and put the other one against your ear. Anyway, that's probably would be better audio quality than you get out of hit clips, is the moral of the story.
Absolutely. Okay. Anyway, so that was my CD of the week. So now on to the topic. Now it is my turn to pick the topic this week. Joy doesn't know what I'm going to pick, and I was pondering what I was going to do. And then sometimes some of our topics are way out of the box, and sometimes they're on brand. And this is probably on brand for me. So this week's topic is 80s power ballads.
Yeah, that's pretty on brand.
So before we launch into this list of songs of power ballads, which I've found, I wanted to define what a power ballad is. The Oxford English Dictionary describes a power ballad as a slow rock song with a strong, emotional vocal delivery and typically a grandiose production. And then they give an example. It says, as she belted out at the end of the power ballad, fake snow cascaded down her shoulders.
That's the example they gave?
Yeah.
It sounds like what AI, like the Chat 360 would give you if you asked it to describe a power ballad.
Yeah, maybe I should bring up Chat GPT and just get it to describe me a power ballad. I don't know.
Anyway, all right.
But there we are. Anyhow, so I've pulled a list together of 80s power ballads, and I thought, well, maybe we can discuss them and see where the conversation goes.
All right.
Okay. So I'm opening this list of power ballads with a track by Tina Turner. And this is We Don't Need Another Hero, Thunderdome.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good one. And that one is, it's like, because, I mean, she comes in so intense right at the beginning. She's basically like power battling it. No, I don't know who she's battling. Okay, that word's just hard to say now. I give up. Power battling. I can't say it, Tim. You guys know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, through it from the get-go. Like the moment that song comes at you, it's right in your face.
Absolutely. And I mean, like, you got the power of Tina Turner's voice. You got this huge production. And of course, this was it from Mad Max 2 Thunderdome, I believe this track comes from. So it's probably got a lot of money thrown at it. So it sounds amazing and majestic because it's going to be in the film. And I said it's sort of peak 80s Tina. I mean, how can you go wrong with that?
Well, and it instantly puts what I like about Tina Turner and what I think sets her apart from some of the other artists that she kind of sometimes I think gets compared to is how much of she does have kind of a rocker edge to her. Like that kind of rocker, I feel like she always gets grouped in with almost like a Janet Jackson or something like that. In the grand scheme of things, that she's so much more intense. It has that rocker edge that she can pull off. I've never seen her live, but I've seen her in performances and they're so intense and incredible.
Absolutely. Well, she's since retired. As we all know, she was born Annie Mae Bullock, which is her real name. And she is now a Swiss citizen.
Yes.
She has given up her U.S. citizenship. And as one of the conditions of being a Swiss citizen is you have to learn how to speak German. So she speaks fluent German now.
And for those who didn't listen to the episode where Joy got Sweden and Switzerland confused, I'm glad Tim clarified that from the get-go.
I've been to both places and they're very different.
Considering I can't say power ballad, imagine what my brain's going to do with location. Anyway, all right.
Okay, so let's move on to another power ballad. Now, this is an absolute iconic power ballad from an album which is equally as iconic. And this is Def Leppard from the album Hysteria, and this is Love Bites.
Oh, I mean, I kind of feel like everything Def Leppard did is a power ballad. But I mean, this one's, your iconic, like, just love sucks type. And everybody wants to hear that kind of song when, you're going through a breakup or you're having a rough patch. It's a good song to like put on and turn up. So, yes, I would say it fits in the power ballad world.
Exactly. And the interesting thing about Love Bites is actually a Mutt Lange song. Mutt Lange introduced it to Def. Yep, he introduced it to Def Leppard. And it was originally written as a country song.
I could hear that. That actually makes a lot of sense So I said, of course, because through the course of this podcast, I think Mutt Lange has come up every other episode in some footnote in some album. He's been everywhere.
Well, I mean, he's such an amazing producer and he's worked with so many legendary acts. And even like I was talking to someone on the Twitters the other day, a friend of mine who now runs a recording studio. And we were talking about AC/DC and he produced this particular AC/DC track. And he said it was a classic example of Mutt Lange's psychoacoustic mixing.
That's it's true though, because he always does have that kind of mix. So like a good example is, we all know he worked with Shania Twain. He was married to Shania Twain, things like that. But he does have a mix of like acoustic meets kind of a rocker vibe. I like that that's what they called it.
Yeah, I mean, actually, psychoacoustic mixing is a mixing technique, which is where you double the track and then you boost frequencies. I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah,
that's what he does. He layers. He's so layers. Like I guess that's, you know what I mean? That's what he's known for. Is he's known for the layering. If you watch the Shania Twain documentary I sent you, she talks so much about like the different layers that he learned. He taught her to like put into music, where it literally is like, it gives you that sound. And now Tim actually knows the term that is called.
There we are. And one thing, when you listen to Shania Twain, if you listen really hard, most of her vocals are being doubled by a male vocal, and that is Mutt Lange. And likewise, Def Leppard, if you listen to Hysteria, it has those huge backing vocals.
You're right.
And they're all Mutt Lange. It's like 50 Mutt Langes double tracked.
He's got an amazing voice, too, on top of being a good producer.
Yeah. And the other thing he does is his shouty whisper backing vocals. And I watched a YouTube video about this. And one of his techniques that he uses is backing vocals that sound like they're shouted, but they're not. And the way that you do it is you sing the song as a whisper and then like triple track it.
See, that makes sense, because when someone is using their head voice and getting like a falsetto sound, it's almost like a whisper a lot of times, because it's your chest voice that's so loud and so intense. So Tim knew about the guitar thing, but Joy knows about this one. So when it's in your head, you know, like think of like a Mariah Carey. When she would get to those notes, she would almost get a little bit softer on those really high pitches she would do. And that kind of gives you like a higher falsetto sound. So if you did like a whisper and almost a light whisper, and he kind of already has a high pitch to his voice naturally, and you layered that 3 times just to make it have a little bit more depth, I could see how that could Tim, you just blew my mind, because that's totally see how that works.
Yeah, so like for example, the beginning of Pour Some Sugar on Me, it has that line that says, "Step inside, walk this way, you and me, babe, hey, hey." And the way that it's done, it's multi-tracked many times in harmony. And literally, all in the studio, they're going, "Step inside, walk this way, you and me."
Crazy.
Hey. And then of course, you triple, quadruple track that, harmonize it. And then it sounds like it's being shouted, but it's not loud and shouty.
It's also a great way to save your vocal cords. Well, I don't know. Whispering's hard on the voice too, so maybe not.
Sure, but when you're in a recording environment, if you blow your voice out, you come back the next day. It's not like a gig where you have to play day after day after day.
That's true. That's so interesting, though, because he always does those really high harmonies. You hear him in the back of I guarantee you there's some whispering happening. He's a smart man, that Mutt Lange.
He does, and he never gives interviews either.
I've never seen. I don't even know what he looks like.
There are pictures of him on the internet. I mean, there are a couple of interviews in existence from, years ago, but he doesn't talk to the press. He doesn't do interviews.
Interesting. I mean, that would kind of be cool to just have a backseat to all this music, but, still be able to walk outside and go to Pizza Hut or something.
And I tell you what, Mutt Lange loves Pizza Hut. He hates Domino's. He really does.
Because we know this firsthand. We took him out last week, everybody. We had to drive all the way to Radford to find a Pizza Hut, but we did it.
Well, is the Pizza Hut still open in Christiansburg, or did it close?
It closed. It's the Ruby Tuesdays now.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was terrible. I went in there a few times. I mean, the food was okay, but it was like 1990 never happened.
Yeah, Pizza Hut never really grew. I think they became a little too stagnant in the way, and all of their buildings look, you're right, like from when I was born.
Exactly. Well, there we are for our international listeners. I'm sure you'd be interested to know that Pizza Hut in Christiansburg closed down.
This episode's going off the Richter scales. Are we sure I took my anxiety medicine this morning, Tim? All right.
Okie dokie. All right. Well, let's move on to another Power Ballad. I see you got me saying it now, Power Ballad.
I couldn't get it out. And Tim's just sitting there looking at me like, words, Joy, are hard.
Well, as we said, ladies and gentlemen, we've been recording a lot of episodes day after day after day. So please bear with us.
That's probably what it is. All right. What is the next one?
Okay, so this is a song I haven't thought about for a long time, but when I was researching Power Ballads, this one came up. And this is Jennifer Rush and the Power of Love.
Oh, this is one that I associate, I think, with movies a lot. I feel like it's a song that's been used in a lot of soundtracks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it has. I mean, it's probably been used in commercials and stuff like that, but it is probably a classic definition of a power ballad because it starts out slow and then it's like, I am your lady. Boom, boom, boom.
And it's like in America, that is like classic radio fonter. Like you could turn it on right now and probably find it in at least one of 10 channels.
Oh, absolutely.
99.1. Go, Tim. Give it an hour. You'll hear it. It used to also always play when I was at Kroger, when I worked there as the HR manager, to the point that it got burnt into my brain.
Yeah, and I remember it was a UK number one, and it was number one for such a long time.
It's probably one of those ones that you Google it, it pops up as 23 weeks or something crazy.
It's something like that. It's certainly in the same kind of scale as Everything I Do It For You, which was a number one for like 3 months or something.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Did Jennifer Rush do much else, though? I don't know much about her as an artist. I knew that was the singer, but I don't know too much about her otherwise.
Well, the album I'm looking at is The Power of Love, the best of Jennifer Rush. Now, let me see if I can recognize any of these other songs.
Because if that's the best of her.
She did a song with Elton John. She did a song with Michael Bolton. And I know she did a song with Placido Domingo.
I have no idea who that is.
He's like a opera singer type thing.
Oh, okay. So...
But I have not heard of any of these other songs. So I think from our perspective, she may be a one-hit wonder.
Well, she's probably making enough royalties off of all the movies that song went into.
Well, I don't know if she wrote it. Let's have a show credits.
That I don't know either. Like I said, I don't know much about her.
She has a co-writing credit on this song. So maybe she's got some dollars, or I think it... Looking at the fact there's a lot of umlauts in it, I think she might be German, so she might have some euros coming into her. I don't know. Huh.
You know, what's interesting is she does have a kind of a sound to her voice that would sound German. Now that you said that,
there we go. Anyhow, that was. I consider that a powerful power ballad.
Yes, good on you, Jennifer Rush.
There we are. All right. Well, the next one. This came up as a power ballad in a few places, and I think this is controversial. I think this is on the edge of what you'd consider a power ballad, but I don't know. If we go back to that dictionary definition of a power ballad, maybe it does fit it. And this is from the album Use Your Illusion 1. This is from Guns N' Roses, and this is November Rain.
Why is it controversial? I would think of it as a power ballad.
Yeah, I don't know. It's... To me, I don't know. It doesn't really sit as a power ballad with me. I don't know.
I mean, it is, I guess maybe it's not as rocky, that is like, not like rocks. Like it doesn't rock as hard. Like there's not as like intense guitar kind of coming in that you hear, and they're not like punch you in the face power battle. It's a battle now. How many ways can I say ballad? It's a power ballad, but I still think that, I don't know. I mean, if it's not a power ballad, it's definitely an intense rock song. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the bit that stops it being a power ballad is it has that guitar bit at the very end of it.
Oh. That wouldn't even have occurred to me is why. I just thought it just wasn't as intense.
Yeah, I mean, it has a lot of the hallmarks as a power ballad, but if I think of power ballads, I'm thinking of the ones that I've just described and the other ones that I'm looking at on my list. But I said this one kept coming up, and I thought, isn't it? And so I just wanted to throw it out to the panel there.
I would lean more towards yes in my brain.
Okay, well, I'm on the fence. I'm on the power ballad fence, and I could fall off, and it could go either way.
Yeah, if 10 is yes and 1 is no, I'm like 7.87.
Yeah, I'm a 5.1 in the no.
I don't know why we had to get so specific, but anyway.
Well, there we go. All right, well, let's move on to this one. This is most definitely a power ballad by every definition. And this is Poison, and this is Every Rose Has Its Thorn.
Yeah, this is probably... if I had to pick like one of the most iconic, dramatic, and one of the songs that my husband absolutely loves, it's Every Rose Has Its Thorn.
Absolutely. And I mean, I've played this in a number of bands. And in fact, in Flagger Hill, we've just actually started doing Every Rose Has Its Thorn. And, many years after the fact, decades after the fact, people still love it. And I was hesitant to play it for a while because I thought it was sort of tired. But someone suggested it in a practice, and I said, "Oh, that's easy enough. I can play that." And we played it, and then we did a few gigs with it, and people are like, "Yeah!" When it starts, people love that.
And this is going to sound kind of harsh, but the way I can define it as it's the most like iconic, like 80s power ballad in the rock kind of genre we're talking about. I just have an image of a guy with like it's like a heart, and then there's a rose, and then there's like one thorn, and it just says like every rose has its thorn on its arm. Like that is what I think of when I think of this song summed up.
Yeah, I think doesn't the singer in the band have a tattoo like that or something like that?
Something like that. Maybe, guys.
Well, I certainly enjoy performing it because it has a bit where you get a note sustaining, and then you get it sustaining, and then you get it feeding back with your amp, and then it just goes woo. It's beautiful.
And to be fair, Tim, he has quite a few tattoos. I can't keep up with them.
Me or the singer from Poison?
The singer from Poison. What you guys don't actually know is when Tim takes the t-shirt off, there's 3,000 tattoos covering the entire orifice.
No, it's just a hairy chest, Joy. It's nothing like that.
It's a lie. He's hiding it from the world.
Fantastic. All right, well, let's move on to this one. This one is another classic power ballad. And I think if I had to think of like the top two or the top three 80s power ballads, you've got your Every Rose Has Its Thorn, you've got your Love Bites. But I think at the top of that tree has to be Alone by Heart from the album Bad Animals.
Yeah. It's the sustaining of the notes and the length of which, you know what I mean? Everything is held out for impact with that song.
Exactly. That's how it's which goes, till now.
Yeah, exactly. Now, my thing about Heart is generally I can, most songs in a mezzo soprano range I can pull off with decent, whatever. But Heart is some of the hardest music to sing. Mm-hmm. I tried once, and I am a firm believer in anybody can learn to sing up to a certain point. You just have to have the skills and be able to hear yourself and learn how to use your instrument. Like you can train to a point with singing where you can kind of pull yourself through a song. But when it comes to Heart, I say don't touch them if you can't do that, because I have tried. I've heard other people do it, and for some reason, what is her name? I can't think of her name, and my mom would be so disappointed in me.
It's Ann and Nancy Wilson.
It's probably it's whichever one's singing in that one. I think it's probably both. But anyway, my mom would be so mad at me for forgetting their names. Sorry, Mom, because she loves Heart and talks about them when I was a kid all the time, and so. It just, I don't know. You just have to have the perfect sound to pull that off. It's very hard to sing. And I instantly heard 2 seconds of myself singing and I went, absolutely not, never again. I shut that off.
Yeah. I mean, they are amazing singers. Nancy Wilson is a fabulous guitar player. And, they've made such amazing music, and they sort of move with the times, because in the 70s, a lot of their stuff, Barracuda was, kind of 70s rockish, but as you moved into the 80s, they sort of adapted with the times and created this kind of like sound that they had. Mm-hmm. And it must be said, in the video for Alone, I don't think as much hairspray has ever been deployed in any other music video.
You're right. And I can see her leading in guitars. It's just all hair, nothing but hair.
It's an amazing amount of hair. So much hairspray was used. I mean, you talk about in the 80s, the ozone layer and the hole in the ozone layer. I think it was actually above the soundstage where they filmed that video. It's
like, have you ever watched Hairspray, the movie or the musical, Tim?
I'm familiar with it, but no.
So in it, it's the TV show that they're like, so it's like these teenagers that are on a TV show that's kind of close to Bandstand type thing. Mm-hmm. And they're sponsored by the Hairspray can company. And it's just funny because the hair, it has to be really big because they're sponsored by that company. And so whatever you were saying that, I was like, I wonder which Hairspray company sponsored the Hearts music video.
It's probably L'Oreal or someone like that.
That's what I was thinking, but I was like, I don't know what, just a theory, everybody. That's why there was so much hair.
And there was, in the videos where there's a lot of leather and it's in slightly soft focus. I mean, everything about it is perfect. I mean,
and I can see it plain as day because my mom watched it on VH1 so much.
It's fabulous. I mean, it's anatomically correct.
All right. What is our next power ballad? I said it right.
Okay. So this one comes from the film Top Gun, and this is Berlin, and this is Take My Breath Away.
I'm going to say something controversial. I don't know that I would necessarily think of that as a power ballad.
Again, it came up on a number of lists that I found. And it came up on a bunch of playlists and compilations of like top 80s power ballads. And it was on there. I mean, there was a lot of songs that were classed as power ballads, which I rejected for my list because I thought that is not a power ballad. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I sort of felt that Take My Breath Away was a power ballad. But what's your reckoning on this one?
Well, it doesn't. First of all, it doesn't. I want my power ballads to pack a punch from the get-go, and it doesn't feel like it packs a punch to me. It mostly feels like, I mean, it's, sappy rock music, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't, the power piece is missing. And that's what it is. The power piece is missing.
Yeah, because I suppose it starts and it ends in much the same way. A lot of these power ballads, like Alone, start off ballady, and then it comes in with a massive punch. So yeah, I suppose you're right in that respect.
That's how I imagine, just like an arch. Like you start out very slow and then it's like a roller coaster. You're going up and then it punches you and then you go back down. It's supposed to be like that's the power in the power ballad. The
roller coaster, the journey, if you will.
We gave a lot of analogies for the same thing, but yeah, that.
Okay, well, I can live with that. I will let you have that one if you let me have that November Rain is not a proper power ballad.
Go for it. I didn't care that much anyway. Guns N' Roses isn't going to be calling me anytime soon.
I tell you, I've got them on the phone all the time. I had to hang up their call before the episode recorded.
Axel himself. All right.
Exactly. All right. Well, this is a classic power ballad, and I think you'll agree this is a power ballad. This is Bonnie Tyler, Total Eclipse of the Heart.
That might actually be the top of the list for me.
It's a classic. I mean, turn around. I mean, it's great.
And if we're going to talk about my packing a punch theory, it really does. It starts here and it just every line. And it doesn't have to be like one curve. It just like it tints this and then it draws back and it tints this and then it draws back. And she does the tensions in her voice. The music matches it. There's like a rush. But I always think about when that total eclipse happened. Mm-hmm. So I always think about that, Tim, because for the rest of the day, I can't tell you how many people walked past me going, total eclipse of the heart, because we all went outside and watched it.
We did. And I remember it was hard to get hold of those eclipse glasses because you should never ever stare at the sun because it's super dangerous and you'll ruin your eyesight. But they were selling these eclipse glasses that it was okay to stare at the sun for a very short period of time through these glasses. And they were incredibly hard to get because everybody wanted them.
Yep.
And there was a certain person that was working with our team. We had a person working for us and they were working with them. And I was talking to her about these glasses and she said, I think I can get you a pair. And then it wasn't even the day that she was supposed to come in. She came in and gave them to me. And she said, just don't tell anyone.
So is that how the pair of glasses that were floating around came to be?
Yeah, they came from that person. So we had an intern that came in and we had a person like a caseworker that was working with the intern. And it was her. And, I go on, I get on with people and chatting with stuff and things like that. And I said, she like slipped them to me like it was some kind of like drug deal or something.
That's funny. Because there was like one pair of glasses we were all kind of standing around. And wasn't there a telescope?
There was. Our friend Chuck, of course, has a telescope, and he had it all set up and pointing at the sun, and then he was diffusing the thing, and it was,
It was a fun day, though, but I heard that song sang about 37 times.
And I think there's supposed to be another eclipse coming up soon, I think.
But isn't it a lunar eclipse or is it a solar eclipse?
I think it's a solar eclipse. I'm not entirely sure. I need to call Brian May up and ask him. He would tell me.
And he has a telescope.
Well, of course he does. He has probably a number of telescopes, but he also has a telescope that he built with his dad, which is on the roof of his house in London.
It's not weird that you know that, but...
Says me who knows what kind of shoes he wears.
What I was going to say is, all I was thinking was, of course he does. He works with NASA. And then Tim goes, but on the roof of his house. In 1937.
Well, it would be, it would
I don't know what it is, Tim, but you do.
Well, he built the Red Special in 1964. So it's probably about that. It's probably early to mid 60s, if I had to guess.
Darn, you got to get more on your knowledge. I thought you'd have the year and date down.
No, I did recently find out that he wears Adidas Superstar trainers.
Okay. How? Was this an Instagram find or was this on the Googles?
No, because I wanted to get a pair because I'm just a fan.
There's so much laughing in this episode. Half this episode is just going to be laughing.
Okay, well, let's move away from Brian May's footwear because we're always talking about that. And this is another power ballad, obviously again from the 80s. This is Bad English, When I See You Smile.
Oh, I'm trying to think if that falls under my pack-a-punch theory. I guess it does. I love Bad English, though. I think that's a band that everybody forgets existed.
Yeah, I don't really know if they had a huge amount of hits, but this is the one that most people remember. Thing is, it does pack a punch later on in the song when it gets that big chorus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I said. I was thinking about it, kind of playing it in my head as I went through. I said, yeah, I think it does. I find like it's kind of interesting that you don't hear about Bad English too much. Are they English, though? Were they from England? I have no idea.
I don't know anything about Bad English.
It's just funny because, I keep thinking Tim's talking about actual bad English, and then it dawns on me that's the name of the band.
I speak nothing but proper English, Joy. Right, proper English.
Oh, yeah, me too. Totally. Us Southern Americans are killing it on the English. What was it? Tim was trying to write something right before we started the episode. He's like, oh, I typoed 1 second. I was like, Tim, the world is counting on you to keep me straight. You can't be typoing.
Yeah, because I shared the episode that posted tonight and I put it on the Twitter, which currently still exists at the time of recording, it's fair to say. And I typed it and then I've typed this wrong. I miskeyed it when I typed it in.
But see, when I think of Bad English, I also think of that song Straight to Your Heart. I think that was a pretty big hit for him. And a few other songs, but I couldn't even, if the members of the band walked by me, I don't think I would know what they looked like.
No, but that's true for everyone in the top 100 right now.
That's true, too. It's like when me and Molly tried to watch the Kids' Choice Awards, like I told you, and they kept naming people, and we're like, what? Huh? Who is that? Like, we're 1,000 years old.
Yeah, DJ someone featuring someone. They had the breakthrough TikTok here with this, that, and the other, and it's like, what? Who are these people?
And at one point I just went, are those the Kardashians? That's about how that would go. I mean, to be fair, unless you're like a Bret Michaels or something from an 80s hair band, I'm probably not going to recognize you walking down the road anyway.
Exactly. I mean,
it's not just bad English.
No, and then the other thing is that when you see people like that in real life, they look different anyway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're probably going to recognize Paul McCartney. You're probably going to recognize Roger Taylor. You're probably going to recognize, I don't know, an Eric Clapton or something. But a lot of people like Daryl Hall and John Oates. If one of those two people, you saw them in Target, you may recognize them, you may not.
Daryl Hall, I would, Tim.
That's true. Well, I know that. That's true. Maybe John Oates. There you go.
No, I have no idea. Unless he still had a big mustache.
I believe he's actually legally, in federal law, he has to have that big mustache.
But then I might just confuse it with an 80s cop. That might be the hardest Tim's ever last. They're like, were you on that TV show Chips?
Chips is fabulous. I watch Chips on occasion. That is a great show.
It is. But anyway, are you Starsky or Hutch? All right, I'll be here all week. Da 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 da.
Bonk. Okay, well, let's go back to another 80s power ballad. So this one is from the Bon Jovi album New Jersey. And this is the song, I'll Be There For You.
Yes, this is iconic power ballad. You know, I'm surprised Bon Jovi is just now coming up because he's a quintessential power battle. That's not what I was trying to say. Ballad singer, I feel.
He has that kind of voice. And a lot of those Bon Jovi songs are very dramatic. And now I would imagine that Charlie probably likes some Bon Jovi.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You give Love a Bad Name and Charlie will be like, it'll be one song right after another because like I've said many times, he adores that kind of stuff and he loves people with those really strong, intense voices like that, like a Meatloaf or like a Bon Jovi. He loves that sound.
Yeah. And there was a lot of that in the 80s as well. I mean, so in the 90s, Bon Jovi's sound changed a little bit. And in the 2000s, and after Richie Sambora left and Phil X started playing guitar, their sound did change. But in your classic 80s Jovi, your New Jersey era, your Slippery When Wets, there's a lot of power ballading going on.
And I'm going to say something. This might be a spoiler alert if you're like 2 seasons behind on The Masked Singer, but I can't remember which character it was, but he was singing and everybody kept saying, oh my God, that voice is so iconic. That voice is the voice we know. It was Bryan Adams, the most iconic voice of all time. When you're thinking like those sounds we were just discussing, and somehow it slipped past me and Charlie. It slipped past all the judges. Like everybody was on the cusp of knowing who he was. And then as soon as you like heard his name, of course, it was obvious because Bryan Adams, his name became one. Bryan Adams has a super iconic voice to the tone, to the intenseness, everything.
And was the contest, was it like penguin versus leopard or something?
I don't know what he was, but it was something stupid like that. He's a parrot or something. I don't know.
Parrot versus cockatiel.
Oh, and another one they missed recently, and this is very recent. So if you are watching the new season and you are not caught up, do not listen for about 30 seconds. It was Dee Snider. They guessed Gene Simmons. They guessed every name but Dee Snider. Once again, one of the strongest, most iconic voices.
Would you look at that? I've never seen a single episode of The Masked Singer, if I'm being honest with you. I've seen clips of it, but I've never seen an entire episode.
I know, and it is absolutely ridiculous, but I enjoy it, and I love a good mystery, so it's fun for me to try to put the clues together to figure out who it is.
There we go. Well, I mean, you're watching that, and I've maybe be watching an episode of The Greatest American Hero or The A-Team.
Or Mythbusters. I think did you finally make it through all of Mythbusters?
Yeah, that was one of my lockdown watches, because like a lot of people during the lockdown were at home or work from home, but the kind of work that we do, hands-on IT work, we did some of it from home, but after a while we said we have to go back to the office. We can't do this work. So we would go to work, and then normally we sort of socialize at lunchtime. We meet at the break room, and there's a crew of people that we see every day and we eat lunch with and chat with and stuff. And we weren't allowed to do it because they closed the break room. So I'd sit in my office at lunchtime with the door shut and then watch a TV show while I ate my lunch. And I watched the whole of Greatest American Hero. I watched the 60s TV show The Prisoner, or rewatched it. I've seen it many times. It's absolutely fantastic. I recommend that if you've never seen it, with Patrick McGowan. It's superb. And then one of the other ones I watched was Mythbusters, from episode 1 to the very last episode. And
which is a lot.
100 and something episodes. I don't know. I really enjoyed rewatching it. I saw a lot of them when they were out, and then some of the later ones I hadn't seen. So seeing them from beginning to end, it was good. It's fair to say about halfway through it completely jumps the shark because it stops being myths and it's like, today we're going to bust the myth of what happens if you put C4 in a sandwich. And it's just like, it's just gratuitous explosions. There's no myths. There's no science.
That is okay, I gave up on speaking, everybody. That is exactly how I would explain that because it was perfect, Tim. It's like at first there really was myths about like if you poked a hole in the cabin of a plane, what would actually happen? Would everybody get sucked out? And then at the end, it was like if you tried to watch an episode, there'd just be like things going off and you don't even know what's happening.
Yeah, towards the end, it got really ridiculous. But I mean, it was a good TV show because there was a lot of science content and it got a lot of young people involved in STEM. So, I mean, it was a good show. It really was a good show.
I agree with you on that.
But there we are. But that has nothing to do with 80s Power Ballads.
I don't even know how we got here.
Okay, well, let me draw it back to 80s Power Ballads. So this one, again, I want to know what you think about this. It came up on a lot of these compilations, on lists and research that I did.
Okay.
And this is U2, With or Without You.
I'm at about a 5. I don't really think of U2 as power ballads as a whole.
But I mean, it has a lot of the markings of a power ballad. It starts sort of kind of slow and subdued, and it's driven by that bass line. And then it sort of builds and builds and builds. And it doesn't have the bam of some of this other stuff, but it does have the Edge's guitar and the vocal is building up. Mm-hmm. And the drummer, who is fine, he's playing the drums, he's bashing into it. I don't know.
And it's got some form of intensity. So power ballad, it has to be some emotion, some raw emotion behind it. But and maybe it's just because like the lyrics aren't as intense or something, but it's not as intense of I don't know. I'm 5. I can't make a decision, Tim.
Yeah, I think I'm like November Rain, where I'm a 5.1 about to fall off the wall to say it's not a power ballad.
Yeah.
I would say With or Without You, I'm a 6 or a 7 on the It's a Power Ballad.
These are the questions everyone's been wondering, Tim. What are a numeral scale that reads like nothing and they have no clue what these numbers are arbitrary? But I don't know. I do think it's got some markings, but do I think it's 100% a power ballad? If I were making a list of my own power ballads, because I'm going to be stuck on an island and the only way I can get off the island is to bring them a list of power ballads, I wouldn't put it on there.
I mean, and that happens, if we're being honest. You can probably count on all your hands and all your toes the amount of times you've been stuck on an island and have to present a list of power ballads.
It's the only way you can get off the island.
I mean, it's terrible. I mean, it happened to me only about 2 months ago.
This episode's gone off the Richter scale. All right, Tim, what's next? Moving along.
Okay, so this is another song from Tina Turner, Annie Mae Bullock, who lives in Switzerland, and we covered all that, and it's not Sweden.
Fair.
And she is the only person on my list who has a second song in the power ballad category. And this is What's Love Got to Do With It?
Oh, that's a great one. Once again, she is so good at delivering a punch, and all of her songs are so straight to the point when she's like, well, what's love got to do with it? They're not as, as whiny and emotional as the males on the list, but I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something about her, something about the amazing voice of Tina Turner, and her career in the 80s was completely off the charts. Mm-hmm. And again, I feel so silly. I lived in London all the way through that time. She played at Wembley Stadium, I don't know how many times. She would have played London, every venue you could imagine during the time I lived there. Yeah. And guess what I never did? See Tina Turner.
Why? Because just like I was saying earlier on the first time, her concerts are so over the top intense and fierce, and she's got a bolsterous voice. And I mean, to move as much as that woman does, and her voice still comes in so strong, she's got some control over her vocals.
Absolutely. And then do you remember when she did that duet with Bryan Adams? She did a cover of Addicted to Love. And
it was so good.
Yeah, it's just good. It's just good music, and it's a shame she has retired. I mean, good luck to her. I mean, she had a long career. People enjoyed everything that she did, and then she's decided to go to Sweden or Switzerland, depending on where you whichever one you want, and retire. But yeah, it's a shame.
You know what song that Charlie hated when I first started listening to it, but now he loves it, and I think of it when I think of Tina Turner so bad. It's Nutbush City Limits. I absolutely adore Nutbush City Limits.
It's a great song, but don't listen to the remix version that's on a lot of these compilations. No. They made like a remix housey version that's no good. But yeah, the original Nutbush City Limits. And in fact, I want to go to the Nutbush City Limits. I've looked it up and it's not super far from here.
Well, it's a one-horse town. You're going to have to watch what you're putting down. But that opening, I don't even know how you would do it. When she's coming in and there's like the intro, there's like a guitar riff right at the beginning of Nutbush City Limits. And it's so good.
Yeah, it's probably a Strat. It sounds like a single coil guitar. And it's a bam, 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 bam. We used to do it in Rough Justice years ago.
I love that. That's a song that I don't know that I don't know how many people would know that song. It's not, you don't hear it on like the radio or anything like a lot of the big Tina Turner hits.
No, I mean, it is UK cover band fodder. I'd say a lot of UK cover bands do cover it.
I wouldn't think that. Because I don't know that I've ever heard a cover band in America do it.
It's funny. It's like, I don't know who decided this list of songs that cover bands do. And there's like a UK set of cover band songs and there's a US set of cover band songs. And they actually intersect far more than I thought they ever would. And I don't know whether it's driven by what's played on the radio, but I don't know. But someone decided this list. And certainly if you play it in cover bands in the UK, certainly up to when I left, I mean, I can't speak for what happened since 2011, but certainly until I left, you could fill in, or dep as you would call, with any cover band you liked. And it's fair to say you probably already knew 65% of the set even before you met the people.
I mean, do you think that could come down to playing ability too? Some of those songs are probably very similar to play, and so it's very easy going in and out of bands. Like, do you know what I mean? Not everybody's the strongest player. Some people can play, every chord in the book like you, and then some people may only be able to know like 10 chords. It might take a little longer. Do you think it could be something about the song structure that like links them?
I mean, it could be, but some of the songs are very complicated.
That's true.
I don't know. It's just that like someone somewhere decided this was the list of songs to be played. Like the Undertones, Teenage Kicks. Are you familiar with that song?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's another UK cover band, everyone does it song.
Never hear that here. Not even a little bit.
No.
Well, what's a US one that you wouldn't hear in the UK?
Wagon Wheel.
Which is a song I could go without hearing ever again. I used to love it.
Yeah, and there's a few others like that, but the one that certainly comes to mind is Wagon Wheel.
What about Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Fishing in the Dark?
Fishing in the Dark, yeah, I've played that in cover bands here.
But again, you wouldn't see that in the UK?
Absolutely not, no.
Huh. And speaking of that, Sam Jackson or Jackson Sam, what was the guy's name we were just talking about that I said we kind of forgot he existed, but he had so many hits? Jackson Brown, that's what it was. Mm-hmm. He actually wrote the song Fishing in the Dark.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
I learned that recently.
Probably from Laurel Canyon, where he was living at the time.
Well, he wrote a bunch of songs for the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. I mean, but to be honest, I can't name one other song they did, so.
No, it's the only one I'm familiar with, so I don't really listen to the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, but I have played that song in a band before. It's in drop D, ladies and gentlemen, if you ever want to play in a band.
I absolutely love that song, though. I'm going to say it's a guilty pleasure. It's a guilty pleasure. I do like Fishing in the Dark.
And you should never have a guilty pleasure. Just enjoy it because you like it.
Fair enough. All right. But it is definitely not a power ballad.
No, 100%. Well, let me wrap up this 80s power ballad episode where we've spoken about some power ballads And then we've gone off on tangents about Hairspray and Mythbusters and goodness knows what. So let me close this episode with this song by Mr. Mister, and this song is Broken Wings.
I have a story. So when I was in high school, we would sometimes, when you're studying for different tests and stuff, they put you in little competitions. And in my honors, which is like a college credit kind of thing you could take in high school in America, it was a science class. I think it was probably biology, whatever. We did that. We were studying for the test you had to pass for it to count for college credit. And so we had two different teams that were separated, me and the rest of the students in the class. Well, it tied at the end of Jeopardy. And so he said, okay, I'm going to give you guys a music question. And everybody was like, thinking, because it was the early 2000s, they're Gwen Stefani's and stuff. And he did Mr. Mister. Only person in the room who got it right. Here.
Boom.
And I remember this popular cheerleader girl looking at me and looking at her friend and going, who is Mr. Mister? And like staring at me. There you go. There's my story about Mr. Mister.
Fantastic. And actually, I was going to close the episode, and that was going to be my last song. But as I was looking through the list, there was a glaring omission that I thought I'd done and I haven't done. And if I'd have not done this power ballad, literally tens of people will be writing in to complain.
Tens of people.
So this is actually the last one.
Okay.
So this is Foreigner. I Want to Know What Love Is.
Of course. I should have predicted that. I mean, yeah. This actually, looking back to the entire episode, I think this may be number one, Tim.
It's certainly up there. Certainly in the pantheon of 80s hair metal rock, like of this type. Yeah. It's up there.
Also, like, another song that's American 101 radio fonter.
Absolutely. I mean, like if you tune 96.3 ROV right now, you wouldn't have to wait long to hear I Want to Know What Love Is.
Is that one of your songbooks of local bands playing? Is there American or UK that plays this?
No, not really, because it has a very powerful backing vocal. And it's rarer a local band or a cover band would have really good, powerful vocals to the style of what's in this song. And in fact, Foreigner played Elmwood Park in Roanoke a year or two ago. And they invited like local schools for their choirs to audition to do the backing vocals for it. And then when they played at Elmwood Park, they brought on whatever school came on, and then they sang the backing vocals for Foreigner.
Wasn't it actually Christiansburg that won?
I think so, because they had some kind of thing in downtown Christiansburg. They have events in downtown Christiansburg where they close the road and they have vendors and they have food trucks and they have things going on. And they had a stage there, and they had the children who won that competition, and they were performing I Want to Know What Love Is.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they won because I remember it was all over the Facebooks and, all of that stuff. I mean, and for those who don't know, because we already took you to the local pizza place, Christiansburg High School is the one closest to me and Tim.
Absolutely. They used to do the 4th of July fireworks in their like a track, in this like the athletics ground. And then we was there one year and the thunderstorm came through and we were sitting on the metal bleachers and they evacuated it. And ever since then, they now do it on a piece of disused land by the mall.
Yep. And I remember I was mad because I didn't get the notice the year that happened. So I was, I have a funny story, I promise, and then we'll leave you guys because we keep saying we're going to leave you. That year, so right behind the school, there's like a playground at the elementary school. You know what I'm talking about, Tim, if you go down like the hill. And we lived right there previously before I moved into this house. And so we would just walk to the little play place right there and like, go stand up on it and look at the fireworks. It was just like a fun thing we did. Well, here we are. Just sitting there, sitting on metal playground equipment going, oh, where are the fireworks? We all take off running. Good times.
But there we go. All right. So we will leave you with that, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Do you have any other comments for us before we leave?
I'm very curious to see what happens to Twitter. And I have a theory. It's going down. What is your final opinion, Tim?
I think I'll be surprised if it lasts till the rest of the year.
All right, that's where we'll leave the people. Bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.
To find me out for another day to